Okay, good evening. Welcome to the March 25th meeting of the Hingham School Committee. Started a little late. First item is to approve the regular session minutes of March 11th, 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Student communications. It's been pretty empty tonight. Okay.
Moving right along.
Communications, Mass Day on the Hill, postpone it.
Yes, that's an important postponement. And also, I left in your, at your place tonight, something that came from the Suburban Coalition. And as you're aware, they're an advocacy kind of group. And I particularly liked this article or this notice because in it, it identifies 3 different pending bills that all have to do with unfunded mandates. And so there's one to look at costs that these mandates or these bills that are proposed may or may have and how they may impact school systems. There's another one to appoint a commission or a committee to focus on that entire thing. And there's another one that says if a bill is proposed, then it would have to be accompanied by some sort of fiscal study. And also it talks about an implementation timeline that works. So I think these are bills that we should watch, and might not be a bad idea to send off a note to Garrett and to Bob about our interest in them, because they're certainly all things that we have talked about many, many times.
Who's our legislative?
It's Andy.
It's Andy.
Andy.
Okay.
And then the last bit in terms of communication, I left you all a little postcard tonight. It's advertising the annual Fine Arts Night, district-wide Fine Arts Night. And as in the past, it occurs on Thursday before April vacation. So in this case, Thursday the 11th. It's in the high school cafeteria from 6 to 8, and is always a wonderful event. A lot of excitement by particularly the younger children who love to show off their artwork to their parents. So very nice event, and that is the invitation.
That's great.
Great.
That's it on the communications
Okay.
piece.
Hey, Andy, right before you came in, there's a piece at your place that talks about the Suburban Coalition. We're
Great.
saying maybe at some point you might want to get in touch with Garrett and Bob and talk to them about unfunded mandates.
There are 3 bills there that
Oh, great.
propose some possible actions.
You know, I like those, taking those
Rally.
head on.
There we go. Okay. New business. Well, comments or questions from the audience? Okay. Roger, you want to dance for us? Okay. New business, to hear an update from the Hingham Public Schools facilities, projects and plans by John.
Good, thank you. I have a few slides. This won't take long, but the intention really is I just wanted to make the committee aware of some issues that were going on across the system. So,
Roger, can you get the spotlight?
So yeah, a brief overview of the significant things that are going on, a quick storm, damage update and what the implications of the storm were, and the impact on the budget. And then I wanted to call some other items to your attention, just so you're aware of they're going on. The Foster boiler, we've had a problem with that. There's an e-school chiller job that we've had problems with. And we also had some pumps fail at the e-school as well, 2 pumps. And we're having a meeting on that tomorrow. We've already repaired those pumps and we've already paid the damage, but we're actually trying to go back towards the to the vendor, or identify who the vendor is, or the electrician, because the problem with that pump was that a submersible splice was not correct. And we have the pumps, we have the splices, and so we're calling the electricians and seeing if we can kind of get some type of remediation or get somebody to fess up to this is their problem. The whole ticket item was probably about $7,000.
What about the commissioning agent? Is there any possibility of getting the commissioning agent involved?
We've had numerous dialogues with the with commissioning agent and with Mary Mahoney, and Mary's actually got Griffin Electric actually coming tomorrow too. I guess a subcontractor did it, but Griffin Electric actually owned it. So, you know, there's been finger pointing. So tomorrow we will meet at the pump at the site and see what will happen.
And since they lost out on the bid at the middle school, I wonder how interested they'll be in helping, but hopefully.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear it, yeah. And then I just wanted to kind of go over some year-end planning items that, you know, we've been working on. So, impact on the budget, new items impacting the previous forecast. So storm overtime, you know, the first couple of storms, like the blizzard and the one we had right afterwards, the overtime for just a combination of those two storms was about $18,000. So, you know, when I did the forecast, you know, there's maybe some, I would have allocated some overtime, but, you know, nothing relative to this impact. So I just want you to know that that's out there. And the last storm, they all seem to happen on a Thursday or on a Friday over the weekend. So, you know, you ended up paying, you know, overtime on these because it's not part of the regular workday. Then, you know, as a result, too, we'll have some impact on the energy budget. Prices have been staying stubbornly high, really. We had good contracts at the beginning of the year. The intention is to kind of get another allotment to get us by the second half of the year. We haven't locked in anything, so right now we're paying the spot market price in Boston. So it's probably about 20 to 40 cents a gallon higher than, you know, what our contracted price would, actually 20 to 40 cents higher than the contracted price. And, you know, probably about 20 cents or 30 cents higher than what our budgeted price was. So those variances may sort of work themselves out, you know, to the extent we're positive at the beginning of the year, we may end up, you know, neutralizing that impact. The science wing odor, you know that there's a capital item in the budget for that for next year. However, we have done some work on this. I've had an expert come in to kind of look at the science wing and give us some remediation items right off the bat. One of those was we visited the roof, and one of the thoughts is that we should be extending the ductwork, fresh air ductwork, out so we get it away from the stacks that actually emit the odors. So that's one item we're getting quotes for right now. I think that the minimum price of that will be about $46.50. I'm trying to get 3 quotes on that, even though it's under $5,000. I'd just like to know that I'm paying the right market price. So we're going to probably do that ductwork. And then the other plan with that science wing odor is in April vacation. There's a couple of vents. We want to smoke one of the vents or put smoke in one of the vents, so we determine, you know, where that second vent goes. We can see one up on the roof, but we can't see the second one, so we're going to smoke it out. And that's a plan for April vacation. So we're addressing that issue. Whether we'll need this $20,000 next year that we have allocated or not, we don't know. But you know, that's some of the analysis to figure out, you know, what the impact or the ultimate cost would be. High school gym sensors. During this season, we've had a couple of incidences where the lights just went out. One bay of lights went out, and you know, there's nothing we could do to get that bay in. Based on the electricians, we've had them in analyzing it, and what they basically said was the type of sensors we have, if a bay goes out, you actually need absolute stillness in a room for 5 minutes before they'll go back on. So clearly that won't work, you know, for sports events. And then 2, we were trying to get this situation corrected before town meeting, just because we don't want to have an event like that happen at town meeting.
After the field article, maybe.
Right, yeah. So I think we'll have to change out those sensors. I'm not sure what the cost of that is. I'm trying to get to the ultimate cost of what it would be. But to me, it doesn't seem like that big of a job. But you may have heard about it, so I wanted to make sure you're aware about that event. We had some of the ductwork in the kitchen's hood vents cleaned, and one of our vendors that we called in cited us on not having an access panel to clean the hoods, and then since reported it to the fire department. So we have to put a vent access into the ductwork at Foster, and it sort of goes up through a roof and over to a corner. And so we're doing a little testing on that because we have to make sure that the surfaces that we penetrate are clean. So that will be an issue that we have to address. We've talked to the fire department. They do want us to address it. And this is just really putting an access panel in the vent system at certain locations, like every 12 feet. So we need at least one so that it can be, cleaned. Important issue really when it comes down to cleaning grease, but we don't use friolators. We don't have a lot of grease, but yet, we're still subject to the same regulations. Then the water meter issue at the depot. Today, actually, I met with John Walsh from Aquarian Water and also with Randy. We met at the DPW building and discussed that issue. Those bills right now are up to $16,000, which I haven't paid. And there's a little more research that has to be done. Aquarian has a regulation in place that maybe this falls under, and we're trying to get it moved towards the fire service. So ultimately, I'm not sure of the impact. I did not put it in my budget this year. The year before, I did notify the town saying, I'm not putting this in my budget. This is a fire service. It's really servicing your buildings. I don't think the town budgeted it either. The bills are still coming to me, even though I sent the bills. I sent them once up to Sue, and she sent them back to me and said, talk to Randy about it. So.
Okay, good luck with that one.
That's
Yeah.
important to get squared away.
Yeah.
For another reason, that is if the light department actually occupies that property.
Right.
That is all linked into this old water system, so important to get sorted
Yeah.
out, who belongs to what.
Right.
As a result of today, we think we have a plan. The Aquarian's got to do a little more research. So if this bill is $24,000 a year, and that's just for the meter, which services hydrants and also fire suppression systems at the DPW building, the idea that they're thinking about is that it could become a fire service, but then each private hydrant there would have its own charge. So, it may drop something from $24,000 down to $10,000, which of course would be a benefit because it would be priced differently. And that has to do with the tariff of the water department. He can't turn around and make an arbitrary decision on changing over the meter structure.
So that $16,000, is that last year's?
Nope, that's the bills that we're incurring this year.
Okay.
They go up about $2,100 a year, a month.
So what happened to wasn't there an outstanding balance from a year ago?
No, I paid last year's bill. Yep, I had paid last year's bill. We're almost done with 13 now. That's
Right.
the 13. Last year's bill I paid, and then during the budget process for 13, that's when I notified the town and said, this is yours, you guys should include it in your budget. They didn't include it. When I got the bills this year, I sent them up to the town accountant, and then that's when I got the bill back and said,
It's
deal with
strong on.
DPW.
Okay.
So I think we'll get to the bottom of the issue.
Good.
And I think once we find out how they can restructure it, of course, then, I'll bring in the town and bring in Ted and say, hey, here's what they think they can do, and now we have to split this billing so that the school gets their appropriate bills. So I don't know what our liability might be there, if any, or if it comes out of our budget, or whether it's a reserve fund transfer that we ask for to cover it.
Okay.
Because we know we have a positive variance, I think, that we're still dealing with, but we have projects or ideas that we wanted to sort
Right.
of use that money for.
Right.
Storm-related issues, so the solar array, this was back in October, the solar array that was on the high school, that one panel went, and then after that, they just fall like dominoes. So, before they all fell off, Paul removed them all, and he's been working with the insurance company. They're still not reinstalled. So most of that should be covered by insurance, but often in these settlements, we're on the hook for the first $5,000 deductible. So we'll probably have some exposure there. Curbs, sidewalks, and asphalt repairs, I mean, if you see the streets and the sidewalks, they're a mess.
Yeah.
Our parking lots will be a mess, our when we
Everybody
get to
says-
finally see everything again, I'm
Yeah.
anticipating that there will be, some cleanup repairs that we will in fact have to make sure we get to. Roof leaks need attention. Larry Babcock at the high school just wrote me an email the other day saying, hey, he identified 12 leaks at the high school. So, we've got all those documented in school dude so that we know where to look for them when it's time to get up on the roof and fix these things. And then it's been a tough year with workers' comp claims and absences. We've had a couple of custodians out on workers' comps, it's storm-related injuries. One was a sprained wrist out for a while, and another actually, one of the custodians at the high school just recently hurt his back lifting a 50-pound bag of ice melt, And then there's been other sort of absences, which, one's a workers' comp claim, and the others having some elective surgery for, a knee repair and stuff. So all of those, I mean, you're paying absences at the same time that you're still having to pay people in order to do the job. So there's a little bit of exposure there. Not all storm-related, but it's the same force. Other potential items here, so the Foster boiler, there is a crack in the Foster boiler, a couple of them. And this is an insurance item. We have boiler coverage. So the insurance agent was out there. We think some of this will be covered. We've got a price of $28,000, but of course when you get to $28,000, that means we have to go out for a public bid. So not really knowing what the price will be, and then what the ultimate insurance settlement will be. The deductible will be $5,000. The chiller at the East School, so there's 2 chillers that failed that have not been replaced yet, that have to be replaced before the summertime. Johnson Controls has given us a quote of $22,000 on that. Wade Matson, who has actually spec'd out those chillers for the East School, he's gone to JCI and told them, said, hey, this is your stuff. If you want me to continue speccing this, you got to do something for this client. That was a few weeks back. I've hit Wayne again to see if he's got any update on it. But we'll certainly have, whether it's $22,000 or whether it's half that or whatever, we have some exposure there. I don't know what that number will be, but what we have is a quote right now to replace 2 chillers at East School for $22,000, and job absolutely has to be done.
John, is that something that's unusual, that they need replacement at this stage?
I certainly think so, Paul. They're only 3 years old. It's compressors. You'd think that you should get a decent life out of them. And they were installed by JCI. They were the blocks and all the paddings, and they'll come and say, oh well, it was vibration, but they're supposed to install it so the vibration doesn't impact it. So. I don't know, East School, we had the pumps, we have the chillers, we've had an elevator.
Solar wall.
We've had solar wall, we've had a number of other items, It makes you really long sometimes for just keeping the old stuff, or the old equipment that we used to have,
Well, it makes you question the value of under budget at the time it's delivered, right? And wonder what happens within the next 3-4 years when you're using all that saved money on replacements for equipment that shouldn't fail.
Right. But then that's the mass procurement laws too, where,
Yeah.
these are low bidders, these are the qualified sub bidders and, qualified general contractors, and you think that, you'd like to think that it's always top quality, but, I hope things slow down at the East School. Because it does seem that some things seem to break prematurely.
It's also disappointing that we pay so much for the commissioning agent, and I think we all believe that would help with this kind of an issue, because it could be an issue of poor quality equipment or the method of installation or whatever, and so I always saw that as kind of another avenue of insurance, that we would get what we were paying for, and it would be reliable and last a reasonable life. So it's both the equipment and the fact that by MSBA guidelines, we had to have a commissioning agent.
Well, the good news is in the middle school, the MSBA pays for the commissioning agents,
Right.
so.
And you don't want to buy 5-year warranties on everything. It just seems that this equipment should be warranted off the bat for 5
So
years,
is there
you know?
no warranty initially?
1 year, Karen,
1
1
year.
year, and I guess you can buy additional 5-year warranties.
It's the same thing on the elevator. I went to the elevator company and said, look, stand by your product. It's been such a short time, and, you know, it's really the 1 year. And since we didn't carry maintenance with the same company, you know, but we said, well, you didn't bid for the maintenance contract. So how can we give it to you if you don't bid for it? It's ridiculous.
I mean, you know, so the maintenance costs will continue going up as we embed more and more technology into buildings. And I'm not sure the compressors technology, but, you know, it seems everything they're making today has, you know, either other chips in it or, I mean, the chiller was actually leaked, so the coils were leaking. I don't see that as technology. But it is important to know as we're talking about these issues, right, the technology that's embedded within our buildings, you know, be it elevators or be it heating control systems or HVAC systems, all of
Lights.
those things have a cost to replace and to repair. And every time you do it, I mean, these guys are coming down, it's like, you know, $165, $200 an hour. You know, they're hitting you with an hour travel time, and their job's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be billed at least at 2 or 3 hours. So every repair is running, you know, $700, $800, and many of them that Dot and I have seen, they're up at like, you know, $1,000, $1,500.
Okay, well, let us know
Okay.
how that goes with,
Already talked about the water
Please.
meter issue. So
Yep.
then the generator at PRS has failed. There was a propane run generator, and we made a decision that we didn't need to replace generators at the elementary schools. So there is an underground propane tank, so we'll have to remove that. I would not expect that to be big item, but, you know, probably be a, you know, couple thousand, 3,000, or, you know, I don't know. So I just wanted to call your attention to that one as well. Year-end planning. So, yeah, I will take another, you know, I'm gonna take another look at the budget. I know that we're still in very good shape this year. We still will have a positive variance at the end of the year. So, previously, we had talked about some year-end items. Since we're not repairing generators at Foster School or Plymouth River, there was a capital item for lighting cans or for emergency lighting that we deferred into next year. So I've authorized the purchase of those cans out of year-end funds so that we can have adequate emergency lighting at both Foster School and Plymouth River. Already did that.
Good.
We're actively getting quotes right now for to convert the water-cooled refrigeration at the Foster School and the Plymouth River School to air-cooled refrigeration. That's a code requirement. Plus, two would be water savings as well.
that's great.
I'm soliciting quotes for structural review at the of the Foster shed. I've got another one from Situate that I think would be more cost-effective, so I'll be meeting him. And hopefully we can get a seal of approval, or at least get the evaluation, and knock on wood, everything would be good, and we can just go forward with a painting project to, you know, spruce up that shed. And then I plan to solicit quotes for the Plymouth River shed. The capital item that I had in the budget was like $24,000. Now, for a building project between $10,000 and $25,000, you have to solicit written quotes, and you put an ad in the central register, and people can just give you quotes. If it goes over $25,000, then I'll get into a sealed bid situation where I have to put in, you know, a spec and do a sealed bid. So, you know, with that, I wanted to kind of get the committee's ideas or views on how we think, you know, this project should go. So I've actually taken some pictures for you. So, you know, this is the Plymouth River shed, and you see the windows up there. 2 of them are gone on this side, okay? And the back side is all gone. And, you know, those shingles on there right now are cedar shingles. Okay, so, you know, in the windows, those, they look like they're beige, but I think they're just cloudy. Because when I go in there, it looks like they were all plexiglass, and they just all scratched up or cloudy, so they really, yeah, they would emit diffused light. Okay, this is a picture from the inside, so you can see the other side of it. There's no windows. All the back windows are sort of already gone. Okay, you know, here's the state of the roof, right? You know, the shingles, you can see the shingles deteriorating. Okay, you know, back to the front. So the decisions here, I think, will be asphalt, you know, asphalt or cedar shingles. Asphalt shingles, I think, would be less expensive, and, you know, either take all the glass down and don't replace any glass, or replace all the glass with, you know, a new plexiglass glass coating. I think that if we did the asphalt shingles with the, and replace the window panels, I think that could come in within the amount, you know, within $24,000, I think it would be budgeted at. Cedar, I think, could potentially break this into, you know, $35,000.
Well, we had cedar shingles on our house, and we had to re-roof a portion of it, and we just got asphalt shingles that look like cedar. Can you do that here?
I'm sure we could. You know, I think we could do asphalt shingles that look like cedar. Are they architectural, or they just look like they're just?
Well,
I
I think
don't
there
ever
may be
look up-
something between the two, because I know in our neighborhood, we faced this issue where it had to be wood initially, and then with, you know, different products that have come out in the past 5 or 10 years, you can get
Mhm.
some shingles that look like wood that aren't wood, that are cheaper. That,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether,
And last longer.
and
And
last long,
last
and from a fire perspective, also may be more fire retardant.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there's something between asphalt as in wood. that-
Or could you ask for a quote that has prices for asphalt versus cedar versus a third?
Yeah,
Product.
there's some hybrid, so I'll research the hybrid, and then I'll,
And Carol, we met long-range planning where we went through all our capital items, and then we were awarded our capital budget, so we need to get back together and reprioritize everything, so we can also follow up there and do some analysis for you.
Okay.
Can I ask on the windows? So is that a target? So if you're, are those,
I know.
what, are those plexiglass now and did they break or did they just fall apart? Do you know?
I don't know
They've been
how they
missing
got
for
into
years.
this state, Carol.
I don't even remember.
I'm sure they were a target at least some of the time.
Yeah.
Because remember, these sheds are used during times when there's no
Right.
supervision.
Correct.
Um,
But would
Yeah.
plexiglass, would that stand up to somebody throwing a baseball or a rock at it?
Probably not.
Oh.
You know, I mean, that's the thing, I mean, so I think, you know, the other decision is to, you know, it's keeping some weather out, but
Right.
if you've got a very strong windstorm, you probably shouldn't be playing there anyways. We don't see, I mean, there could be some water buildup, you know, I guess maybe water would get in, and then that would make it a little bit unusable. You know, I think that there could be a decision made, it's like, you know, just take them off, take them down, and leave it open. Then, you know,
I kind of like the sun coming in. It looks brighter in there.
let's see where the others,
But you could have
Yeah.
some issues with water making slippery, freezing, you know.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Damaging the concrete.
Any thoughts?
You know, we see some water in there, but it's really been snowy more than, when did I take these?
Looks like right after the snowstorm.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it was the slushy wet one or whether it was some other snowstorm. So maybe we could.
I think we should do the windows, and I think we should do the asphalt unless you can find a hybrid that's reasonably priced.
I agree with Ray.
About
Okay,
doing-
then I'll look at the hybrid and we'll,
I think
we'll
the
see what
asphalt's
we
gonna
get.
retain its look longer anyway. It's not gonna wear like the cedar will. Obviously, it's more expensive. It's, you know, it's a different look, right? But do we need that look for the play shed at PRS?
Yeah.
I'm
Good,
not sure.
okay. Everybody good with that? So,
I'd just like to see it fixed up.
I know, yeah, it would be, I mean, you know, it's not so much a leaking thing as this is, you can tell it's due, you
Right.
know, it has to be done, the infrastructure has to be maintained, so. Okay, so what else do I have planned is, we're, doing training for custodians and maintenance personnel this week on, expanded use of the school dude platform. That's our automated work order system to automate the work, ticket system. This will also give us the ability to put preventive maintenance orders in as well, so that these will be tickets that will drop automatically, so, All the custodians, lead custodians, and the maintenance people will get trained this weekend, and then the idea is to make it a requirement that they retrieve their tickets and that they assign the jobs to the other people and that they close out the jobs. So, and then also, School Dude has along with this maintenance direct, there's the ability to put in records for all your equipment. So, we'll be getting inventory pieces of equipment. We're building that now as we go along. When we put a new piece of equipment in or we have a trouble with one, we establish a record within School Dude of that piece of equipment, and then we know the last time it was repaired, so we get a good historical tracking. So we got that going on Friday. And, so the next steps really, so this is just a brief list of the things out there. I just wanted the committee to be aware of, what some of the big things that were going out there. For the rest of this year, some other problems could develop. We never know, what might happen. I'll continue working on the projects that we detailed and talked about here, for using end-of-year funds. We'll look at the budget very closely. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to take another look in detail at the budget and make sure see where year end's likely to come out and stuff, and to the extent that, we're still showing good, favorable, positive balances. I'll try to commence additional work that we had previously discussed throughout the remaining quarter. So if we can get them planned and get them going now, we could potentially get them a lot of jobs done by June or July, but they'll be in progress for this year's funds.
That's great. Does anybody have any questions for John?
Yeah, just one, John. So if I'm remembering correctly, we had in the capital plan, which did not get approved, something to fix the temperature control at South, right? Because we can't control the temperature?
Yes.
Or there's right.
Yes, that's EMS.
Right, okay. And that did not get...
No,
Right.
South did, $136,000.
Oh, South did?
We did get South approved, yeah. That was
It was the high school that got put off. Okay,
Yeah,
right,
high
okay,
school.
now I remember.
And the difference was
$80,000.
because the South School one is proprietary.
Right.
Whereas the other one, I forgot what the word is. So proprietary means that you're at the beck and call of those people.
Certain brand, yeah.
And it was $20,000 a year we were spending just on maintenance.
Right.
So that was a top priority.
I only mention that because I've spent Sundays at South in the gym with
Yeah.
basketball this winter, and the heat is always pumping in that gym on a Sunday afternoon when it doesn't need to be. It's
Yeah.
like hot,
Right.
crazy hot. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, I think that we'll get a lot of savings out
Yeah,
of
it's
upgrading
good.
that technology,
That's great. John, thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Great. We need the lights back on. There we go. Item 6.2 is to hear an update on the recent mandated program reviews. Quite a few are undergoing, I understand.
And I think that I gave you a quick update before the coordinated program review ended in March, and we did talk briefly about it at the following meeting. We have an exit interview that we think went well. I would say we will have to wait for the written report, and that may be a number of weeks. But the team of 2 people here were very complimentary about the helpfulness of the staff and our readiness, and they felt welcome, and so all of those are good things, and we will get the report at some point. And that included the ELE, Civil Rights and Special Education. Ellen has done Title I review, which turned out to be a little briefer than. Do you want to comment
It's,
on that?
they do a desk audit. So they have, Title I is highly regulated. There are many, many, many specific requirements. So myself and the other Title I staff worked really hard putting it together. And so all of that's gone in, and so far we haven't had any questions or responses, so
Good.
we'll get a report on that.
And Title IIA is another quite small grant. Title I and Title IIA, of course, are federal money, whereas the coordinated program review is a Massachusetts process. But the 2A is a small grant that we get, and nevertheless has to be audited.
It's about
each year.
100, is it 100,000?
You
It's
know.
about 58.
58? It's
Yeah.
about 58, okay.
Yeah.
Combined or each one?
No,
No,
Title
Title
I
II.
is about 95,000 and
95 or 85?
85.
85.
And Title IIA is about 52, 54,
Yeah, somewhere
something
around
like
there.
that.
Thank you.
And then John also had, for the first time I think we've ever had this kind of review, and it's also part of the state process, and that is looking at the financial protocols, what policies and procedures and so on do you have in place, and where might you need to do other things. There's a long list of things they wanted to look at. A young woman came in about 2 weeks ago,
Yep,
one
on the
morning,
11th, yeah.
and we'll get some recommendations on that. I want to stress that all of these are really audits of rules and procedures and regulations and laws and so on, as opposed to dollars. The actual dollars that are involved are really not the subject of this. We are audited annually by the town's auditor on the dollars, but this is strictly on regulations. So it's been a busy year on that count, but in the end, hopefully, a good thing. The new fingerprinting law, still there are not regulations in place. DESE is working on those, and we hear that the plan at this point would likely be to appoint a vendor who would be able to provide the service of fingerprinting employees, and then the vendor would establish some kiosks or actual sites throughout the state. None of that, of course, has happened yet, nor could those kind of things happen in a very short period of time. So certainly our hope at this point is that the implementation might be able to be delayed. The original implementation, that was part of the law, said that we had to fingerprint all new employees by this September. I just see no way that could conceivably happen, but we'll stay tuned. And then all of our employees within the next 3 years. And supposedly, this is going to be a one-time process. But the Corey process, when it was first initiated, was a one-time process as well, and now it is every 3 years. This law, or this piece of legislation, is actually part of the Corey law.
But your fingerprints don't change, right? Your Corey, I mean, your background might change. Fingerprints,
Right, your fingerprints don't change, but if you were, got in some trouble between the time that you had them first done, and so it's a new record search, not just of
Okay.
whose fingerprints match, but part of the criminal background record. So, and of course, that has a cost component to it, which certainly we could pass on to people we're about to hire as a condition of employment, but clearly, as this moves forward and we find out more, I think the unions are going to be interested in that as an issue as well. So, more to come on that. And
Excuse
then
me,
the-
Dr. Gallo, does everyone, like, I can understand the school district, but do all the other departments have to do that? Or is this just to schools?
This
employees?
is part of the Corey law that has to do with protecting children who might have from individuals who might have unsupervised access. What we have heard, I think reliably, is that the people who would be subject to this check are the same people who are subject to a Corey. So that's all employees. We have many of our volunteers are also subject to this, people who would accompany a class on a field trip, that kind of thing. Volunteers are people who come into a classroom and read with children or work with them in other ways. And contractors. Roger is to be appreciated for even more things than you know, given how many Corys he's had to do for the contractors and the workers that have been on that middle school site, literally hundreds of them. So we heard the other day that volunteers would not be subject to the new fingerprinting law, but that contractors would. So that's a little discouraging, given that at the middle school, the contractors who did the steel, they've moved on. The people who did the foundation work, they've moved on. But in will be coming the people who will be doing the finish work and the installations and the mechanical systems and furnishings and all of those kinds of things. So that was a little disturbing to hear. So
Done 628 so far.
628 so far.
Corey's.
So there's no synergy among other town departments, because they don't really have this, with maybe the exception of the rec department, but that would be very-
Yes, and we do process many queries for rec as well, because those are people that work with children in an unsupervised way. So.
But we process them, rec doesn't.
I don't think we process them, I don't think we do the direct processing
Okay.
of those. But they come here, of course, to get their working papers, and so
Right.
we will often remind them of that.
Okay.
So it's a huge extra job, and
Well, that's what I was hoping, if it was a townwide issue, let's throw it
Yeah.
back to the selectmen and let them deal with it.
And for
instead of
us, particularly with respect to employees, is that, we offer someone a job, and we don't want to be held up and not be able to offer that job, and then find that they go somewhere else who
That's the cost of
can
doing
process
business.
them more quickly, so.
Okay.
So anyway, the educator evaluation mandate, of course, we're moving along, I think, well with that. We've had a working group comprised of members of the HEA and management members, and Ellen and me, and have gone through the template. Everybody agreed that using the state proposed template was a good starting place, and gone through that. We're nearing the end of that process, and so relatively quickly, I think, we'll be suggesting that the bargaining, the salary negotiations committee and the HEA bargaining group get together and move forward on that. So it's been, I think, a productive process with everyone, and so we are making good progress on that very, very big project. And of course, accompanying that process of coming up with the protocols and the timeline and the guidelines for evaluating educators, we also have been doing some training along the way, and training at the administrative level, and then administrators within buildings and departments, and that's going well as well. So,
Good.
So I think we're going to be well poised for this ambitious project.
That's a big project.
It is,
Yeah.
for next year. And a lot of credit to everybody for being collaborative, but particularly to Ellen, who's done a lot of the fine reading and reminding us of what we have to do when and all the steps. So I do appreciate that, and as does everyone else.
Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Okay, 6.3 is to receive notification of spring coaching. It does not feel like spring.
I know.
Assignments.
There's a new revision out today, and Margaret said the only changes, and I put an arrow next to them, are she had used an incorrect first name for one of the young ladies. I think she called her Catherine, and it's Nicole or something else. And then there is another volunteer person who has been with us before and has just been added to the list.
Okay, that's great.
While we're on sports, I would say I attended a very successful Hingham High School Athletic Hall of Fame event on Saturday evening. It was well-attended, 183 people, I think, which is the biggest one that they've had. This was the 8th event. They do it every 2 years, and a lot of enthusiasm, and Margaret also did bring the boards over to have them displayed in case somebody wanted to look at what we were planning, and I don't know if we got any donations out of that, but she did mention it at the podium. So a very nice event. Scott Wally is typically the MC, and did another great job.
That's great. And who's, Mr. Barges was inducted?
Bill Barges was one of the inductees, right?
Yeah.
There were 13 people, one posthumously and another who couldn't be there, but the others were all there. And from 1945 or 55 was the oldest individual. He is deceased, but the others were all there and very excited.
That's great. Congratulations to them. Okay, 6.4 is to receive information regarding an overnight, of course it's overnight, field trip to Beijing, China.
And this is not until next April, but those kinds of trips take a lot of planning and some significant fundraising, and that's why it's put here at this point. If you had questions, this would be the second trip. They went last year, actually, and the hope would be to do something like this every other year. And it was a very successful trip. Paula did go on that trip last year, and they had a number of other chaperones as well.
That's great. And then 6.5 is to receive information regarding the Montreal trip, which happens every year.
Right. And also, I put it under the 48-hour thing because on Friday morning, after the agenda had gone out, we did get the one for the choral trip, and given that that's happening the week after April vacation, I did include it here, so it's at your place tonight, and it's a trip to Disneyland, and it's really, I don't know whether this part was planned or not, but they're going to Disney World, not Disneyland. You know, they had their annual expo that they've been doing a theme event every year, and this year it was on Disney music, so when they go off to Disney World, they'll have a repertoire of music that they can
We have a bunch of talented kids. The expo was wonderful. Okay. 6.6 is to receive notification about a leave of absence from Mr. Young. We wish him a successful year learning how to be a conductor. Is that correct? 6.7, Roger left. To receive notification of Mr. Bodie's retirement.
Denial.
I would say, too, that their process is beginning this week, the process, part of the process. The news has been with us for a while, but this week on Wednesday, we will be doing a forum in the afternoon for faculty to get some input from the faculty on what they see to be things as we make the transitions of leadership and building occupancy. What are the kinds of things that parents and parents in the evening and the faculty in the afternoon would like to see preserved? What are the kinds of things we should be exploring as new ideas? And then even after the building is occupied, there are the continuing issues of removing the existing building and doing the fields and so on. So we have, I think it's 4 questions. Ellen will lead the forum, and we have people that are going to be recorders. I did go to both the faculty meeting 2 weeks ago and last week to the PTO board meeting just to talk about this process. And of course, the other part of the process happens on April 24th when we'll have the public interview. So I did take the liberty of putting a note here that if folks had an interest in being one of the 2 school committee reps on that panel, to let Carol know so she can make appointments on those. So we're looking forward to that.
I've already
process.
received one
Mhm.
person
Yes.
note that they were interested.
Did
So.
I give you mine? I'm giving you mine.
Is that formal?
Yeah.
Okay. 6.8 and 6.9 are 2 more retirements. So we wish them well. And then 6.10 is notification of a paraeducator at the middle school. We welcome Erica. Can we discuss the field trip? Anything else?
Well, I indicated that there might be some news about, or some information that we might want to share about the project or not. Nothing?
Well, the selectmen will be voting on the field project a week from Tuesday night.
So after they vote for the warrant articles.
Yes,
A week from Tuesday?
a week
Okay.
from Tuesday. Yep.
Okay.
So I think it would behoove us to have a unified presence over there and
Okay.
next Tuesday night at the selectmen meeting.
So that's the 2nd?
Yeah.
April 2nd.
Yeah. I think that's better
Better
than
than
April
the 1st.
1st. Yeah.
I'd say so.
Other than that, I think we are getting our bids in this week, correct?
Right.
29th.
Yeah.
Mhm.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
It's Good Friday.
Yeah.
And we perhaps should say in the public forum that, of course, what we're expecting on Friday is the construction bid, and the whole project budget is a different animal from the
And
construction bid.
it's just for the
but-
fields portion, just for
Right.
the fields portion of the bids,
Right.
right?
And the building
And the
portion comes in.
building, yeah, the building
April 9th.
sub-bidder is April 12th, and the general contractor bid on April 19th.
Perfect.
And so all of those pieces then would fit into the actual budget for the project. And so until we have all the pieces, we won't know the actual budget figure.
Right. Okay, building committee report.
I have nothing new.
Okay, subcommittee reports.
We do need a salary negotiations committee meeting, and probably need to schedule just after the town meeting and such another policy meeting to continue that work.
We have a policy meeting, I think, scheduled for May 1st.
Okay.
And I'll send a note to you and Paul about
Ye-
getting together for long-range planning.
Okay.
May 1st is the day after the election.
So I would be the only one not joining the policy meeting
We
if I
would
lost.
still have a majority to
No,
go
but,
forward.
okay.
We have-
You don't want to wait until after
No, because we
committee
have some
assignments?
business to
Okay.
work on. We'll be good.
Just thinking positively.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's good.
Absolutely. Superintendent's report, Dr.
I
Young?
wanted to mention that our first kindergarten enrollment report came in last Friday, and I left at your place a copy of, on one side of the paper, a copy of the report that came in on Friday, and we're, just beginning that process. And then on the other side of the same sheet is the kindergarten report that came in a year ago, first reporting. And I think I mentioned earlier in the year that the
Rickety school.
census, that the census that was done 5 years ago, for children who were born 5 years ago, was up for the coming kindergarten class over last year's class. So at the very top of each of those sheets, you can see that last year, at this time, on the census, there were 248 possible kindergarten children. I say possible because some of those children could have moved away, others could have moved in, but it is a metric of sorts. But we also always have a number of children who come and were not part of that census, have moved here since, and would also pick up kindergarten packets. So that was the first clue that this year's kindergarten, after a couple of years of declining birth rates in declining kindergarten classes, might be bigger. So we started with a census of 280. There were a number of others, 84 youngsters who weren't part of that census, picking up packets. Now, some of those are folks that, in fact, have moved in, but some of them conceivably are children who were eligible for last year's class and didn't attend last year, but might be attending this year. So the way I do the projections is I make the assumption that everyone who picks up a packet will in fact return it. And that isn't always the case, but that's a good predictor. So I take the total number of packets that were distributed, either from the census or from the people who drop by and pick up. That's F, letter F. And then I add in the anticipated number of kindergarten repeaters. And this year that's 8, so that gives us a 273 projection at this time. And the projections always go up, but this initial one, of course, is important. So 273 as compared with last year at the same time, 241. So there is some reason to think that our kindergarten enrollments may be up. On the other hand, last year, for the first time, we tried to enroll new children, either new children to town or new children to our school district, to grade 1 at this time of year, too, for planning purposes. So last year, there were, for grade 1, and this is row I, there were 54 potential first graders who picked up packets, and 32 of them had already returned them last year at this time. This year, there are 41 potential first graders who picked up packets, and 20 of them have returned them, so that number is down slightly. It's too early to know whether that's going to be a pattern or a trend, but I think the kindergarten number being up is certainly a suggestion that we might need another section of kindergarten. And that was not something we anticipated. I think we anticipated we'd likely need another section of grade 1, but perhaps not kindergarten. So perhaps the two things will balance off, and I think it's too early to be in a panic, but we ought to be aware that the numbers are.
Do we have space for the additional?
Yeah, we have space, but that could be moving things around. For example, we host right now a class from South Shore Collaborative, which we'd like to keep, but it might have to be moved to a different place. We typically have, I won't say typically, we often have had to move our Kids in Action preschool class that has a little more flexibility about it from one building to another. Last year it moved from east to south, and we don't know where that might go. But overall, we have space, but it would mean moving some things around in order to accommodate an additional class. So that's where we are on that. And these reports come in every 2 weeks, so we will get another one just before the vacation, probably over the vacation period. I can send that off to you, and we can start mulling over how we're going to use the resources that we have.
The baby boom.
Especially at East.
Vacancy and hiring, we had a lot of changes this year, a lot of personnel changes. You're aware of most of them. But it does mean that, not unlike the year that we're in, we will have a lot of new faces. Now, that doesn't mean a lot of new positions, although we certainly have some that we put in the budget and that we hope will be approved at town meeting. But at this point, in terms of looking at new faces, we have 12 retirements, and that does not include Rogers, because that's a little different process. But so 12 retirements, we had 6 resignations, and we have 4 new leaves of absence. We also have 7 or 8 folks who were on a 1-year leave and have extended that leave. But if you add up the new leaves, the 12 retirements, and the 6 resignations, that's 22 new people just as a starting point, and that's at the professional staff level. We always have a lot of turnover in some of the support roles, particularly in the paraprofessional roles. So, this year we hired between 26 and 30 new faces, and I would anticipate we're going to be in about the same point this year. I learned something last year, however, and that is that whenever I talk about these figures publicly, I have to make sure that people understand they're not all new positions, but they're new people who are, in some cases, representing new positions, but in most cases, a resignation or a retirement or a leave that we didn't have before. So we're already out doing it. We've done an internal posting, and we're going with a new outfit this year called School Spring for our recruiting and our posting and our advertising, and we're enthusiastic about it and about some of the features that has that we haven't had. We've been using the Mass Superintendents Association website, and this one is one that we're optimistic will give us some reporting features, some automatic sending of confirmations that people have applied, and notifying them automatically when we fill a position and so on. So it's a little more expensive, but we think that we're going to benefit from having it.
So you're using this, I'm sorry, in addition to the Mass Superintendent site?
No,
Or
we
you're not
chose
using-
one or the other of those 2 things.
And it's
so
called School Spring?
School
Spring.
2 words, yes.
It's a very commonly used site by folks looking for jobs.
Okay, any comments or questions? All right, then I believe we have a reason to adjourn to executive committee, not to return to regular session.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session to discuss strategies related to individual contract negotiations with senior administrators, the discussion of which in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee.
I'll second.
We have to vote individually, Paul?
Sorry.
Aye.
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 Aye. That concludes the public portion of the meeting. Thank you.